Hi guys, today I'm going to be putting a rose in resin for a customer. Now I've been drying this rose out in silica gel for about 3 weeks. When you take it out of the silica gel, make sure that you get all of the silica out from in between those petals or that's going to float up. Now I have 9 ounces of resin here that I tinted with just a little bit of blue. That is to combat yellowing of resin later down the line. Because I don't care what color or what kind of resin you buy, it will eventually yellow. And by adding just a little bit of blue, that offsets the yellow. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just going to lay in some of this stuff that I've got just to set the rose off a little bit. I've got some dried baby's breath, which I also dried in silica gel. And then some flat leaves. Those are from Amazon. And I'm just going to lay these in here to get them all situated. Now, out of the 9 ounces of resin, I only poured about half of it to start out with so that I can layer in all of my flowers. That way I get them kind of put in the resin how I want. Now I've got these little white rocks I'm going to put in the bottom. I use these rocks for 2 different purposes. One is because it gives it a little bit more aesthetic, a little more, decoration. The other reason is by putting those rocks down like that, then it holds those other things in when you're pouring more resin over the top. So you just see, I put in some more resin over the top of the rose and the rocks just to settle those in there. Now, when you're pouring resin on the rose, you have to be very careful, pour slowly and gently. There are going to be bubbles that are trapped inside those petals. So when you pour the resin, you constantly are pouring a little bit more over the top of the rose. That makes it so that you're coating the rose. So as you're adding more resin later on, you already have a base coat so that you're not going to get the bubbles that you would if you just poured it all at once. Now, the other thing on this is I am using regular 1-to-1 resin because I am out of deep pour. Typically, I would have used deep pour resin on this so that I could pour it in like 2 layers instead. But because I only have that, I'm pouring it in 4 layers. Now I'm going in for the second layer, which I'm doing 7 ounces. When I do a project like this, I will write on my mat or paper how many ounces, because by the end of it, I actually forget how many ounces I have put in, and then it's hard for me to figure out pricing on this. So I wrote down a 7 because I just took the 7 ounces of resin and just poured that over the top, making sure to hit all of those edges of the rose. And then I'm going to let that sit for 24 hours. Now, 24 hours later, I do apologize about the lighting. Obviously, I didn't get my ring light on, but I have another 9 ounces of resin tinted with just a couple drops of that blue that I'm just pouring over the top of this just to get it good and covered. Now, again, I'm making sure that that rose is all the way covered every time I kind of work it in there. And there's my other 9. And now I'm going to let that sit for about 8 hours and do my final pour. For this pour, I mixed up 5 ounces of resin. And as you can see on the last pour, a small bubble formed there. So all I do is take a toothpick and poke that to open up the bubble to make sure I can get resin down in there. Then I pour resin on top of everything. And then I'm going to take that toothpick again and put it in that hole where the bubble had formed and work the resin down in there. And you'll see me do that in just a second here. So I just take the toothpick, shove it in that hole gently because you don't want to mess anything up, and kind of work it around a little bit to open it up to get resin to go down in that hole. That way, when it all dries, you're not going to see that that bubble was there. And all I'm doing with the resin this time is doing my final top coat. Again, I had mixed up 5 ounces of resin, and now I'm just going to drizzle what I have left over the top of that rose. Now you'll see I did this rose as a 3D effect, so it does look like it's coming out of the resin. It's a really great look. People absolutely love it, but you have to make sure that all of those petals are covered in resin so that they dry hard. Now, I didn't end up using all of the resin I had mixed up. I mixed up 5, but I only used 4 ounces on this. So altogether, I used about 29 ounces of resin on this. Now it's time to take it out of the mold. And there it is. So the edges around the top are a little bit jagged. So all I do is take a small nail file and I'll go around those edges with just a nail file just to take those off. I don't use like a Dremel or anything like that on it. So as you can see, because I didn't have deep pour, you can see a midline. That's because I did 4 pours on this, 2 one day and 2 the next, with 8 hours in between on the 2 pours each day. So you can see that midline where it had rested for 24 hours before I started the next pour. That's the only reason I like to use deep pour for these. But honestly, that line doesn't really hinder or make it look worse. As you can see here with it going around, that's the final product. There's the back of it. I think even the back looks very nice and elegant and put together. When it comes around to the side, yes, you can see that line, but most people don't care. And then there's the rose coming through on there. Now I put a light behind it just so that you can kind of see it that way too. I don't know if the customer is going to put it on a light base or not, but I want to see what it would look like when it's on a light base so that I could show her too. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making this one. If you have any questions about how I did this or the process on any of it, please let me know in the comments and give me that thumbs up. Have a great day.